You know, Emmanuel, I know it wasn't on your list, but one of the movies that I like that's also a superhero movie is Hancock. What do you?
Oh, that's in my top 20. Yes.
Your top 20. Okay, yeah, I really enjoyed that movie a lot, and it's another one of those movies that doesn't necessarily come right out and say this is a superhero movie, but obviously, you know, as you watch it, you see that. What are your thoughts about that movie? What do you like about it?
Well, it's, again, a movie about somebody who has flaws. You know, he starts off right off at the beginning. Will Smith's character, he's a drunk. He's on the streets, and you'd never think he was a superhero until he suddenly, you know, leaps up into the sky, and you're thinking, wow, this is unusual. You know, and so this is what I love about Marvel Comics. And Stan Lee, the creator, his whole intention of when he created Iron Man and the X-Men and Spider-Man were that he wanted to create superheroes that people could identify with. And that meant imperfect human beings. You know,
right.
like the latest Iron Man movie features Tony Stark, you know, drinking it up, you know, he's an alcoholic. And that's what he is in the comic books, you know, and yet he has superpowers, and yes, he can help people in the world. And at the same time, he's human just like all of us. We all have issues that we're learning to deal with, and that's why Hancock, you know, it focuses on that, and that's how you can identify with them and just say, you know what, I may not be able to fly, but I have an amazing mind, or I have an amazing physical skill set or something that nobody else can do.
That's important. I think that's really important in a sense because, like, even when you just hear superhero, you could get this impression of, like, somebody who's just above and beyond, extraordinary, you know, away from the crowd, unusual, special, unique, whatever. And although those things are true, at the same time, that same person in some parts of their life might have weaknesses or issues or problems or something like that, but that doesn't mean they can't still be a superhero.
Yes, absolutely.
That's important, I think, very important. I know for myself there's been times where maybe I didn't fully pursue a goal that I was thinking about pursuing because I was only focused on my flaws and thinking I had to fix the flaws first, and then I could go out and do this big thing I wanted to do. And I think the underlying message that we're hearing with these kind of stories is just do it. Do it in your state that you're in right now. You know, do the best you can. I like that.
And that's why movies is really powerful, superhero movies and any movie, because what it does is it helps you break out of your current state of mind, you know, whatever you're going through, especially challenges, and it allows you to tap into your imagination, because that's where anything is possible. And and you know, that's why there's a movie, it's a non-superhero movie, but The Invention of Lying with Ricky Gervais.
My favorite. My favorite. I love it. I'm
so glad we're bonding. We're bonding on another level here. You know, it's one of those brilliant movies that, you know, it's just got this incredible high concept about changing the reality that you have right now. Even though other people say this is the way it is, and you're taught to believe this is the way it is, The Invention of Lying movie is talking about how the positive idea of lying, which means you can tell a different story, the kind of story that you want in your life or your career.
Right. I really resonated with that movie when I saw it. It was very quirky in the beginning because, and this says a lot about us as a people, and maybe just me in particular, but the fact that when the movie starts off, no one tells a lie. If the person's dress is ugly, they say, no, I don't particularly like that dress. It doesn't fit your figure. You know, at the beginning of the movie, you just have this whole, the whole scene for the first 30 minutes of the movie is people doing nothing but telling the truth, not trying to be tactful, not, you know, telling a little white lie. They absolutely tell the truth about everything. And to look at that movie and feel uncomfortable about it says a lot about us as people, that would be so foreign. And literally, as I was watching it, I was like, wow, that is so, can you imagine if we lived in a world like that where I have on a dress and I ask people what they think about it, they actually tell me it's ugly or I'm too, it's not flattering to my body shape. Could you imagine living in that type of world?
Or even like one of the examples at the beginning where they're saying, oh, your baby is so ugly.
Exactly, exactly.
But you would never say that.
Yeah, it's just, and it seems like the fantasy would be what we're living now versus the fantasy being the truth.
Yes.
And so that was what I really enjoyed about the movie. And then he makes up this idea about you could die and go to heaven and all this other stuff. And I mean, that movie is one of my very, very favorites. And I watched it a couple of times because it was just so, it really was a perception changing type of movie.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say, I had been talking to Sherry. I've been watching a lot of movies recently, and what I've been watching a lot lately is biographies. I just watched the movie about Good Night and Good Luck, the Edward R. Murrow story. I watched the Harriet Tubman story. I watched a movie about these two African-American women that worked in the White House from the time that Taft was president all the way up until the time Eisenhower was president. They worked in the White House as maids, as chambermaids for 50 years, for 5 decades, and watched all these different administrations come through, and it's their story in this book that they've written about their experiences in the White House with these different administrations. And what I'm finding is exactly what we said earlier, this idea that normal, regular, everyday human beings have this power, this superpower. When I watched the Harriet Tubman story and to hear about how she freed 3,000 slaves, and never lost a slave and was walking, what took me a long time to grasp in my mind was this idea of she's freeing these slaves from Maryland, and they're walking from Maryland to the New York border and then catching a train from New York to Canada. I mean, in a car on the interstate, it takes, at least 6 hours to drive from Maryland to New York. To imagine that these were people that were walking, so I found those superhero characteristics in Harriet Tubman. I find them in Edward R. Murrow and how he, battled this idea of McCarthyism and communism and how he used his voice to battle this idea of labeling people as communists, and he did it with just his voice.
Yes.
So I think that the idea that we can find superhero characteristics in everyday human beings, if we're just willing to overlook some of the flaws, is so empowering to us.
Yes.
I mean, it's really empowering.
Wow. Yeah, that was very, very inspiring, Erin.
Well, thank you.
It's true, because you're bringing into focus for everyone out there who's listening that that superhero, the term superhero, can be viewed on one level, just on a pop culture level, on a comic book semantic level, and yet when you start applying it to the fact that other successful and great people who've done great things that help change the world are superheroes in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
definitely
right.
Yeah, and they're there to inspire us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and
it just seems rising to the occasion.
Yes, yes.